Well, hello everyone. It's a rainy day here in Connecticut, but that's okay. It's got to rain sometimes, and not taking a walk today. I decided I don't feel like it. I just don't feel like it, so I'm not going to. And I just decided that I'll just talk about today's habit for happiness, which is speak well of others. And I don't know, sometimes I'm a little judgmental and I don't. And then I catch myself later, or I need to apologize. Judging. What am I judging about them? Am I judging them? If I am, do I even have a right to judge anyone else? They say only God judges, right? But you see a lot of it. You see it on Facebook, you see it in the news, you see it in newspapers, you see it in person, people making judgment calls about how somebody is, or they saw something and they believe it's so. And really, that's not always the case, you know? If you kind of use that theory of innocent until proven guilty, I'll use that phrase. Many times you might not know the whole story, so it is very easy to judge someone. It is very easy to make a call on the behavior of someone else when you don't know the whole story. You're coming in mid-sentence, you're coming in the middle of their life sometimes. You have no idea where they've come from before that. And maybe to them, that's, perfectly normal to do, whatever the thing is. I know sometimes I can be really judgmental about people throwing trash out the windows of their cars, or just people throwing trash in general on streets, sidewalks, and I see it. I mean, obviously I see it all the time. I personally do not do that. I never have. I never saw the point of it. I thought, well, somebody's got to pick that up if I throw it, and I kind of use that thing like, well, if everybody did what you did, how would this world look? And so I'll ask you that for yourself. And, again, there is no perfect person and there's no perfect being on the planet. We're all human. We're all going to make errors in judgment and all that icky stuff. But if everybody did what you did, what kind of a world would this be? Would it be more loving? Would it be more empathetic? Would it be more caring? Would it be less judgmental? Would it be more kind? Would there be less trash? Would there be less anything that's not a pleasant thing to have in your life? So I think about that. So many times I do think that, it's important for me to model the behavior that I want to have in this world for me, the way I'd like this world to look. So I try my best to do that and stay on top of that, mentally, physically, all that. I also think about it in terms of, if you're thinking about those kinds of things, that what you're putting out there does affect other people, right? It does change what their circumstances might be. If you're kind and loving to someone, perhaps that would give them the impetus to be that way with somebody else that they might not necessarily have thought about being that way. A good favor turns around to another good favor. It's like paying it forward. A lot of people are paying it forward nowadays. I love that they're doing that. I think it's awesome. And I know that a lot of people, do and don't. When it comes to that stuff, they don't think about it. And then there's a lot of people that's all they think about is, how do I pay this forward? How can I show my gratitude for something that's super neat that somebody might have done for me, and I want to pay it forward to someone else. So I think those things are all part of it, and the way that people, present themselves to the world, is to be kind or to be caring about, what's happening with them. Super important in my book. And if I am going to speak well of somebody, it's for good reason. They've done something that I feel is worth warranting a shout out about. And I see it a lot, and I see it all the time. And sometimes I'll text them and go, hey, that was really cool what you did there. Or, hey, I really liked that you did that. And thanks for doing that. Thanks for being that kind of a person on the planet. Because I think that carries a lot more weight than someone admonishing someone or someone saying, hey, calling them out on something. Most of the time that doesn't change a person's behavior. And a lot of times it makes them more staunch in their position. I think I see that a lot with politics. And I don't want to talk, BS about anybody else. Do I find myself doing it sometimes? Absolutely. If I'm frustrated with someone's behavior, or I'm frustrated with the way someone treated somebody else and I know about it or I heard about it, and sometimes I'll simply just say something like, that upset me. Sometimes I won't say anything and just recognize, like, ugh, I just don't want to see that anymore, or I just don't want to be around that anymore. And sometimes it makes a difference about who I hang around with, So it makes me think about those things going forward. And, self examination, some of our greatest writers all talk about that. Being able to look at yourself and maybe change some behaviors that you don't like, or change some thoughts that you don't like that you have. There's a lot of people that think really icky stuff about other people, even if they don't do anything about it. Just the fact that they're thinking about it is, thoughts. We're going to go back to thoughts are things. So, how do you change your thoughts though? Like, sometimes it's really hard to just change your thoughts and think something different about somebody, or think differently about how you're making that judgment call. That's something that I think about. I actually think about what I'm thinking about. Like, I say that to some people and they're like, well, how do you do that? I can tell you it's not easy. But, sometimes some of these talks are what I'm realizing is what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about what I'm thinking about. And, talking nicely about somebody else and spreading good cheer, or being the kind of person that I want to be, is what I'm thinking about right now. So, am I paying attention to my own thoughts? Am I paying attention to what comes into my head when I see something? Or maybe it's something I do like, or maybe it's something I don't care for. Am I paying attention to those thoughts? And it's not the easiest thing to pay attention to your thoughts. I will give you that. It does take some work and some real self, looking in the mirror and saying, what am I thinking about that for? Like, where did that come from? And then I kind of mull it over and try to figure out, where did that thought come from? Where did that belief come from? Maybe some of it's a belief system that was the way you grew up, and you were taught this by a grandparent or grandparents or your own parents or relatives, or that's the way they thought about certain things. So now you do too, without giving it a second consideration that, is this true for me? Is this true for me? And you can change that if it isn't. If it's not your belief system and you want to change something like that, you can change something like that. That is entirely possible. Is it easy? Probably not. Especially if you've been really indoctrinated in some way to, the way people are thinking about something, and you were raised that way too. And so I'm not even going to give you any scenarios. You can come up with your own. But, it's easy to get caught up in that if you think everybody thinks this way, right? And so I'll just leave it at that, I suppose. So, yeah, I'm thinking about, the 30 Habits for Happiness, and what are you saying that's going to be kind about somebody else? What are you thinking that's going to be kind about somebody else? Are you giving them the benefit of the doubt that, perhaps what it is that they're thinking or doing is coming from a place of love, is coming from a place of caring. And, there's plenty of people that aren't. I see that too. However, I think most people are, and I think that's what I like to focus on, is the fact that most people are empathetic, sympathetic, care about you, care about what's happening in the world, care about people who are suffering in any way from COVID-19 and from other things as well. There's plenty of other things, and I brought that up today when I was talking about something with someone else about, where's the outrage when, 50,000 people a month die from heart disease? Why aren't we doing more about that? Or from, I think the numbers are closer to like 30,000 from drug addiction. What are we doing about that? Where's the outrage? Where is it that people are making a difference in addressing some of those things that are really, life and death, certainly, to many of us. I lost my daughter. It's just been a year, and that's really hard, and we have a terrible, overall, I think, way of addressing some of these things, all of them, everything from heart disease to mental illness to drug addiction. I mean, you name some of the top 20, maladies or ways of having a disease in this country, and we don't have excellent care when it comes to those things. Whether we don't have enough funding or we don't have enough people who have enough interest in making that difference, I don't know. So that's one of them. Certainly that's big on my list, is that you can only focus on so much, you can only care about so much before you go under, and you can't go under because then you can't be there for yourself or for others. So it's super important to, even for yourself, think good thoughts about yourself, think good things about yourself, and don't beat yourself up for any shortcomings or any shortfall in the ways that you may be able to help in certain areas, or in some areas, let's put it that way. And I think that makes a difference. For everybody, there is always, a line drawn in the sand, like I can only do this much, otherwise now I'm not taking care of myself. We talked about that in one of the earlier days, putting yourself first. It was only a couple days ago. Some people never put themselves first, and physically that ends up being, and mentally maybe too, to their detriment, and then they can't be there for the ones that they do care about and that they want to be there for. So that's super important, and I think it's one of the things that people think about when death is imminent, like, oh man, I should have done this or I should have done that, when it comes to their health or their mental stability or whatever, and there's no easy answers out there, but if you look within, all your answers are there. I think that meditation is really a beneficial piece of how people can take good care of themselves and be able to look at the world and not make a lot of judgment calls, and as they say, send love and light to everyone. And what kind of a world would that be then? That would be a much nicer, kinder, gentler world, and I certainly wouldn't mind living in it. If some of the side effects of this COVID become evident in that way, that'd be certainly a big plus, where people are not at each other's throats about stuff. It's hard to say what it's going to be on the other end of this. We don't know if we're in the middle or the beginning at this point. Nobody really knows. Nobody seems to have a lot of answers about how it spreads or what to do and what not to do. And there's a lot of theories out there, and everybody's just guessing. Even the quote unquote experts are just guessing at what they think. Well, this model shows this and this model shows that. Well, someone's coming up with those models, and then they're putting them out there as fact, when I'm not so sure that any of them know. And that's that's not necessarily a negative thing to say. I think it's just a question that I actually have, is like, does anybody really know what is going on with this virus? So Anyway, I pontificate a bit there today. But I do think about those things, and I want people to, not live fearful lives, live positive lives where they feel more connected to others, to more in sync with, the rest of the planet, the people on the planet. What a blessing that would be to be more connected rather than, all separated out and feeling alone and scared and living in fear. Don't want to live in fear. I had another thing I'll share with you. An acronym for fear was forgetting everything's all right. Forgetting everything's all right. So I like that one, and that's going to be my new favorite acronym for fear. Is I'm not going to think about worst case scenario or what's going to happen in the future. I'm just going to try to remember that today everything is all right. So the sun is still shining. It's way up there beyond the rain and the clouds. We'll sign off in my usual manner, which is the sun is always shining, guys. It's got your back. It's got us held in its arms in the earth to keep us alive. Without the sun there, we would not be on this planet for more than a day. So we know that it's taking good care of us. And, hopefully your friends and your family and the people that you care about are doing okay. We do have some family members that have the COVID right now, and I do have some friends that have recovered from it. So I know that, it's not a death sentence, and it also is something that can be addressed as best you can. I don't think anybody can say for sure who's going to get it, who's not going to get it, who's going to survive it, who's not going to survive it. But I think we can all agree that, we want people to be happy and